Good evening. I'm welcoming all of those of you who are here in person, and I'm also welcoming those people who are tuning in from online. And I know there are people across the country tuning in. I want to welcome you to the St. Thomas Poetry Series. And I'll say a little more about the series in a moment. But I want to put the larger context on this. As you know, this is National Poetry Month, April. And the theme chosen by the League of Canadian Poets is joy. And with Lesley-Anne's help, this reading was advertised as the joy of words. Very apt, I think. In the cycle of the creative process, of course, the poem only finds its completion and fulfillment when it has a listener or a reader. And that's why we launch books. And that's why we hope people will read books when they come to the launch and buy them. I'm sure you will find by the end of the hour of readings we have ahead of you that you will experience some of the joy of words tonight. In addition to celebrating books published by the three readers, we are also celebrating the 35th anniversary of this reading series. We began in 1988, if you do your mathematics quickly. And as a result, there's a fairly substantial cake awaiting you in the reception if you'd care to partake of it. I want to say a few words of thanks to people before we begin. First of all, thanks to the Canada Council for the Arts and the League of Canadian Poets for their support. I want to thank some local people like Christine Cover for preparing the program, Riggs and Toot for managing the live stream, Michelle Mayers Van Herk for overseeing the book table, and Pat Kennedy and Margot Swiss for managing the refreshments. And if you look at the back of your program, there are additional thanks to many people over the series, the history of the series. I'm going to introduce each reader just before each person reads. I'm going to draw on the biography you have in the program, and I hope to add a few personal notes as well to that. So the first reader will be Bruce Hunter. He lives with Lisa in Thornhill, but he was born, raised, and shaped by Calgary, Alberta. He and I haven't seen one another in several years, so it's nice to get reacquainted. He did visit Centennial College, where I taught for many years, and read to students when we had literature courses. Deafened as a child or as an infant, Bruce formed a bond with books and the written word at an early age. His poems, stories, and essays have appeared in over 80 publications in Canada, China, India, the UK, and the US. Since retiring from Seneca College after 25 years there, he's been busy as an editor, mentor, and writer. His novel about a young deaf boy finding love and redemption in the wilderness won the 2010 Canadian Rockies Prize at the Banff Mountain Book Festival. His 11th and newest book is Galestro, and it's on sale at the reception. And that's published in Italy by IQDB Edizione. The same publisher did A Life in Poetry in 2022. And it's a translation of his People's Poetry Prize-winning selected poems, 2 O'Clock Creek. In 2017, Bruce was Calgary Public Library's author-in-residence. He is proud grandfather to Julian and Alice. Bruce, I welcome you to come up.
Good evening. I hope my voice is loud and clear. Is it okay? Just go like this, and then, okay, up a little bit. All right. Of course, this is the first day of allergy season, and I've got a migraine, and I'm losing my voice. In the first reading I've done in 4 years. That said, I'm excited to be here with Bruce and Lesley. It's been a long journey for all of us over the last 4 years, and it's nice to be out at a live reading. If I can quickly address the historic nature of the reading, David has been doing this for many, many years, and we're following in the footsteps of many accomplished poets and writers from across Canada, so I'm honored and humbled to be here. It's also Bruce Meyer's birthday, so I'm hoping after you'll come and enjoy some cake and buy some books and chat with all three of us. I've known Bruce for over 40 years and was one of the first people I met in Toronto. I came from Calgary and was not sure what to expect when I moved to Toronto, but this city welcomed me on every level, in university, in the poetry scene, and my first job was just down the street on Sharon Street at Bloor Street United. And churches are a wonderful center in their community for cultural and other activities. While I was there, I met someone who became a lifelong friend, Helen Porter. Helen Porter was a storyteller, a teacher at University of Toronto, and also at Vaughan Road Collegiate. You may know one of her students more than you have heard of Helen, and that is the novelist and poet Anne Michaels, and the actress Randy Helmers. I met all of them because Helen was starting her storytelling career, and Anne Michaels was her piano player, and Randy Helmers played the flute. I'm not going to go too much further down the history road except to give you a quick overview of who I am and what I'm about, otherwise my poems won't make a lot of sense. The book I'm reading from is Gillestro, and Gillestro is a unique soil that is unique to the vineyards of Chianti and Tuscany. I studied soil and plants in college. I went to agricultural college after dropping out of journalism. I dropped out of journalism because I hadn't realized yet the consequences of my deafness. Although I wore very powerful hearing aids, I was given a court reporting assignment. I was able to figure out the dynamics and drama of the story, and that is the judge was making an example of a young woman who was clearly mentally ill. The thing that she had stolen made absolutely no sense, and she stole a lot of it. The judge made an example of her. I could not hear the nuances of the judge's decision, and I realized at that point I couldn't report objectively on that, and not only that, I couldn't hear. So I went on to agricultural college and developed my skills as a gardener and an arborist. During that time, I wrote poetry. I submitted it to the Banff School of Fine Arts and got a scholarship to study with Irving Layton and W.O. Mitchell. That changed the course of my life. I'm going to read the first poem here, if you can bear with me for a second. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce the concept of the book. Gillestro is in part about the grist of life. If you believe what Carl Sagan says, that all life on Earth comes from the essential nitrogen, calcium, and iron from the innards of fallen stars. That is the gist of my book. It's a book of particles. It's particles of narration, particles of hope, and above all, particles of humanity. I also learned a great deal from my friends who were elders. I was very fortunate to have the friendship. Pull it down, how's that? Is that better? Before he passed away, I had a chance to spend time with the Blackfoot elder, Narcissus Blood. And Narcissus explained to me one time about the beginnings of the universe, and it paralleled very much what Carl Sagan said. And then he turned to me and said, we, the Blackfoot people, see ourselves as star people. And I think that's wonderful, because that is true in the science and true in the essence of what I believe about our beginnings. And so it made only sense that I would call my book Celestial, after the essence, after the grist. The first poem I want to read, and I think you could say this about all of my poetry, it's as much about the earth and about people and all the people that inhabit it as it is about poetry. And this is one of the first lessons I learned in my apprenticeship. Between the old and the knowing, slightly elegant in a tilted, rambunctious way, with a noble sweep, one pace across and another tall, not overlooked by the young gardener, who knew no better, watered well and weeded around, no doubt marveled over the flower vaguely Asian, ruffled pods, rucked leaves, a sure stem, until the old gardener, with all the grip the old have on the young, seizes it, lifts, exposing the shallow and ridiculous root. Age has made him sure of this one thing, heaped onto the trash pile, loudly and without a word proclaimed weed. I was taught the same lesson many years later by Irving Layton when I studied with him at the Banff School of Fine Arts. Irving is probably better known to an older crowd. To younger people, I'm sure you're familiar with Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen always said, Irving Layton taught me how to write poetry, and I taught him how to dress. And if you ever saw Irving Layton, you would wonder exactly what Leonard Cohen had taught him. He was flamboyant. I'm going to read a poem from my wife, who asked to remain anonymous in the audience. But she's certainly not anonymous in my book, as I dedicate it to her as my star, my love, and also to our children and our grandchildren. We live on Flamingo Road, and this is called Eden on Flamingo. As a gardener, one of the things I learned very quickly, and I'm sure I learned part of this lesson in the parish hall at St. Augustine Church in Ogden, in my neighborhood in Calgary. Every Sunday at Sunday school, although I could not hear a lot of what was going on, I got the little pamphlets, and the pamphlets were beautifully illustrated with photography of Israel. And I think I fell in love with that place, and that imaginary place as the stories were told. Eden is something I think I've replicated in every garden I've ever planted, and I've planted hundreds. Eden on Flamingo, and part of this is about the history of the Jewish people. My wife is an Ashkenazi Jew, that is from Eastern Europe, but I also mention the other tribes as well. Eden on Flamingo. In the sweet heat of summer, The Ashkenazi girl squats on her tanned haunches in the garden's soft loam, eating tomatoes spotted with last night's rain, catching droplets with her tongue. Her Sephardic toes remember Canaan and the rocks. Her dark tresses tangle damp as she turns. Try one, they're really good, she offers, the white underside of her forearms extended towards me, sun on her bare shoulders, skin that hints of olives. The voice is Eve's. And the tilt of her head, the lavender lush of her eyelids, proud chin, petaled lips, black faraway eyes, Marachi, all the lost and haunted tribes. But this is Soaring Hill, not Eden. Cars roaring on the freeway behind us. Wherever we wander, history and love everywhere, amongst the plants that follow us from the old world, wild carrot, sprawling thyme and lemon balm, the cupped ears of bellflowers, not peeling, but listening. I'm going to skip ahead and because I've talked quite a bit, and I do want to make sure that I'm honoring my time limit. I'm the warm-up band, so you have a great evening coming up. I'm very grateful to have an Italian publisher, and you'll be able to see the books in the hall afterward. My most recent book, my 11th, came out in February, and I have been running at a dead run, sometimes working 10 hours a day to keep up with the correspondence. I seem to have found an audience in the young Italian poets and also in the older poets as well. I have one question I want to ask before I go away. How many people here are wearing a cochlear implant? I'm the lone one in the crowd, unless I can't see someone. How many of you are wearing hearing aids? Okay, you have something to look forward to. This poem is about the journey, and I know there's a lot of young people here today, and I'm 71. I'm still young, but I'm not as young as you. And I often get asked by younger writers and by people who want to start out who are older than me. My little bit of advice, and I've always been a teacher, and I'm the oldest brother, and I'm bossy, and even my bossy boss called me bossy. But the advice I have is stay in good physical shape and keep getting up to bat. And bat as hard as you can and understand that it's not always going to be out of the park, but it's that getting up to bat that's really important. And I'm still getting up to bat, and this is the road. There is a road south of Firenze on the autostrada toward Roma. There's a turn to the east toward the soft hills of old Toscana and her distant mountains. The road rides through the treetops. The vales drop below us, opening south to Siena. On the road from everywhere to everywhere, my friend the poet Fabio says, I have always traveled in my dreams, and in my dreams I can hear and see everything, and the road goes always home, wherever I am. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a good night.
Our second reader is Lesley-Anne Evans, who has come to us from Kelowna, BC. But she was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and then spent, I think, the formative years of her life in Ontario before moving to British Columbia. The St. Thomas Poetry Series published her debut collection about 16 months ago, but of course COVID prevented us from launching it, and so that's what we're doing tonight. I want to thank, first of all, Susan McCaslin from Langley, BC, for recommending Lesley-Anne's remarkable manuscript, and also Alice Major of Edmonton for her invaluable editorial assistance. So Lesley-Anne's poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in the Antigonish Review, Catholic Poetry Room, CV2, Ecstasis, Faith Today, Letters Journal, Presence, and Soul Lit, among others. She was commissioned to write the libretto, Lake of Tears, for Opera Colonna, with several public performances. She also contributed lyrics to one movement of Memories of Self-Isolation, a cantata by Canadian composer Frank Horvat, performed by the Vancouver Bach Choir. When she isn't writing, Lesley-Anne likes to take photographs, wander in the woods with her lovely old dog, and thrift for mid-century collectibles. Lesley-Anne.
How's that for sound level if I just speak right about there? Okay. So I've made some notes so I don't forget to thank anyone. First of all, to David Kent. I am profoundly thankful for the opportunity to be able to write and publish and have his incredible editorial insights and the honing and refining of my work. It is such a joy to be here in Toronto, where I did grow up, with the presence of my father, who at 96 is attending his very first poetry reading. Yeah. My brothers are here, my sister-in-law, some friends, so it's just a marvelous evening. I'm just going to add to the names Susan McCaslin and Alice Major, who were very formative in helping me through the various the various renditions of my work. And I also want to thank Harold Renish and my friend Nobu Ono, who just passed away last month, as well as Daniela Elza. So I just had a dream team of editors, mentors, and people who were holding doors open for me, and for that I'm really grateful. To you, the audience, for being here and listening tonight, that is a big deal for all of us. And also I just want to acknowledge the Okanagan Silks people from whose lands I traveled to be here tonight, and to the many nations upon whose traditional territory we are meeting. I acknowledge your presence and offer you my gratitude and respect. So now I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about the book and how we're going to proceed with the reading from there. Mute Swan, Poems for Maria, Queen of the World, is the narrative of my spiritual pilgrimage out of Christian fundamentalism and evangelicalism to encountering the Holy One in my everyday life. My pilgrimage leads me to finding my voice and myself, not someplace new, but returning to the Holy One in a way I once experienced as a young child, embodied and tangible. My experience is that the earth is pregnant with God. Those are not my words, but they ring true for me. In a review by Ormsby Reviews called Cole Clausen, they refer to Mute Swan as a striking feminist book with grit, beauty, and a nurturing wild feminism. For me, Mute Swan simply serves as an invitation to love and be loved just as we are. So this evening, I invite you to join me on a little walk with Mute Swan. We'll stop along the way and visit several poems sequentially. At one point in time, there will be 3 female voices offering you a meditation. And as we walk together with our unanswerable questions, our joy, our pain, and our curiosity, we may encounter a Holy One who welcomes us all without exception, arms flung wide. May it be so. And a side note, I actually forgot to say that my beloved husband and my adult children are watching through live streaming tonight, so that is marvelous. So I'm reading the opening poem of the book, which is called Testimony 1, on account of a ripe brandywine tomato. There is no angel. There are cicadas clicking like a vinyl record, riding one relentless, everlasting note. There is occasional lowing, dairy cows content with alfalfa beyond the electric fence. There's my cotton sundress and my dusty feet. There are damp curls sticking to my sunburned neck. When I am 4, when I am electric, the white heat of want. There is my grandfather's garden. There is a blood-red globe larger than a grapefruit. There is a scent, green, sharp, hard to wash off. There is beauty when I see, when I reach out and take it into myself as though it is the only answer I will ever need. There is red. There is red blood like wine. There is thin skin and sharp teeth. There is puncture, bite, and softening of jaw and lips. There is making way for sun-warmed flesh. There is the haloed aroma and the tender, glabrous leaf. There is swallow, saliva, and licking lips. There is abundance and ambrosia that cannot be contained. There is spilling and washing and dripping, and there is wanting more. There is no shame. Lament by the fairy tree with angry angels. I am Belfast born, my father and I stubborn as the old country. My mother, when she is furious, says, "Your Irish is showing." When I'm old enough and half serious, I say I'm adopted. I bridge the Atlantic. My identity is what they tell me: Canadian, Christian, fundamental, apart. I grow up with men who use God's word to carve out my tongue, who cover the glory of my hair with itchy hats so I won't distract their prayers. My sideways man hug is perfected in sharp pat, mid-back, brotherly love. Most girls are capable of setting a hook in a worm's thin body and drowning it in a river. Grandpa teaches me to land catfish, name plants in Latin, salt a tomato the size of my hand, and eat it like an apple. Would you look at that, Grandpa says, when Rose of Sharon blooms. He saves me with Reader's Digest, best loved books for young readers. The good book isn't helpful to a girl. Jesus is not my forever boyfriend or homeboy. Mary, an emptied container packed away and opened at Christmas. Sunday after Sunday, I sit in church at the table with best manners, but I cannot ask anything of the Nigerian brother who slurps his soup into his glorious mouth. Keep quiet. Keep busy. Prove I'm not hard-shelled or a backslider. My mother says, "Don't you dare be angry." I'm a bruised knuckle working for our Father's approval. I'm a fist clench of desire, pop radio, movies, makeup, boys. I disappear in library books, squirm in hard pews, no room for questioning the bitch who pricked me with a needle in the back row of church. My mother says yard work is men's work. I perfect the gleam on chrome taps. Escape to Grandma and Grandpa's hay and alfalfa, ride the wagon into evening with boy cousins, call cows to the barn, high wire the catwalk. Shall I then, now? I sing goodbye, yellow brick road. When I cannot sing, guide me, great Redeemer. Do you love me more or less for singing boldly? I learn how husbands have last words. Mom says, smile for the saints. Then I'm gone like Azazel, that original scapegoat. I walk a solitary track. I carry the sins of the people in small packages, shame, guilt, earrings I steal from Simpsons. Each time my mother asks, are you not cold with those bare arms and legs? Each time I bring myself to orgasm. I am excommunicated, a felled sapling, root rot. As I learned to say later, I am betrayed. I repeat these words often to myself. Waking to this truth is an unhinged oyster. Coyotes quiver at the threshold of a gate. My husband will ask me, what does this mean? I tell him I don't know. Just a hint on holy wind. All the while, moon-faced cows call me to the fields. Speckled trout wriggle on ends of long lines, singing, oh, there you are, my darling, come to me. I remember the day I meet the beloved. Walking among spent leaves of black poplar, he listens until I can say something. I'm joined right now by Andrea, who is my sister in love, and Margaret Jean, who has been my friend since we were knee-high to grasshoppers. And together we're going to share with you a poem called Revelation of the Sacred Hip Bone. When I was finally able to read the scriptures for myself, I discovered, behold, there were women. Sue Monk Kidd, The Book of Longings. Surely there is room for my body in your image. Please don't tell me otherwise. Mary's dark night, the birth of holiness through her flesh, surely this is blood sacrifice. Love is Eve's last rite, though I do not know for sure. I look for a way to say more than a half-truth.
Shopping centers, my garden shed, looking for you.
I imagine you approve. I echo your laugh. I am all yours. Inhale, exhale, spirit wind. Carry me in the blue air. Your hands are a summer's day, wide and warm as you catch me. Your face is a crowd. Each smile line is a pilgrim path, a holy well. Well, I had all this sorted with little sticky things, and one just came out. Just give me 1 second here. Well, maybe that means I just have to move on. The next poem is called Invocation to All Thieves on the Hill of Skulls. And this reflects back to what I said in the beginning about this book being an invitation to all, with no exceptions, to come. Come wounded, half sick of shadows. Come with nothing in your withered hand, your brow beaten. Bring your grim despair, your outrage, each slight, each lie you tell in your own defense. You are not banished at the gate. I have set a place for you at the supper table. Wife murderer, bastard daughter, adulterous son, tax collector, arsonist, child soldier, or child pornographer, runner of money and women and liquor. Bring your scarlet letter, your late-term abortion, your gaslighting, half-truths and arguments. Bring your self-soothing forays with booze, narcotics, shame, guilt, terror, craving. All our arguments trip into the ditch, undone. Ask me anything and come. Come, happy drunks passed out on Leon Avenue's chain link edges. Come, flak-jacketed bylaw officers, confiscate our stash of excuses. Come, angels of healing hurricanes, speak daffodils, speak songbirds in our throats, nest and sing. Pour summer's liquid evening and boreal forests of autumn and cranes flying south, leaving winter's callow silence, its cold, cold tomb. Come, prodigal daughter, head crowned with bits of goldenrod, sage from drought, bring your discordant chord, your song of self-rejection. Lights are lit on familiar streets. All is well. This porch light, this fire circle, these hands you hold are yours. We will sing ourselves at the open door. And this will be the final poem. It's a love poem. It's called Testimony 5, A Swan Considers 10 Views of Marriage. Earth. There was a time we didn't think of time. Imagine each day stretching us elastic to our utmost edges. It was early then, in dawn's invigorating chill. We saw frost paint the upheld veins of leaves, but did not perceive the meaning. Later on, we learned to gather fall leaves, press them into telephone books. We iron their vividness flat between sheets of waxed paper. We believe in our power to save red, orange, gold. A worm on a hook, a small sign. It is our will wriggling as if we are free. We are not. Invisible threads hold us. Our desire to taste everything, mercurial as thirsty birds caught in deep water. Sea. The tide turns. I become waves enfolding tiny versions of us. I become a mouth awash with groaning, then quiet. It is quieter yet, and I am still awash. I am washing out. You rise and shine, a sun eclipsing my oceanic night. We feed and clothe our children, play hide and seek with who we want to be. We try to unleash the moon. She holds us still. See how she conducts our daughter's symphony of cycles, her gravity, her cold light. My ear is emptying, a strawberry conch shell's misplaced echo. The tide bears me along. I tell myself each grain of sand will be a pearl. Sky. We are autumn wind writing spring a letter. Laughter is upswept, leaves swirl and fall. Our inside jokes and shared stories, these are the stars we steer by, the constellations born in the nebula of our lives. My lips are a luna moth, insistent at the glass. I persist in seeking sanctuary. Your skin, your mouth tastes like forever. Tell me, is there need for anything more than this? Your wings open, I walk in. We are fluttering, soft as a sigh. Is this heaven? I'm happy. Here, I walk in and find you. Thank you so much.
The newest book in the St. Thomas Poetry Series is Bruce Meyer's Church Grammar. It's another book that's been delayed by unforeseen conditions. I should say it was a pleasure working with Bruce on the manuscript, and it's wonderful that he has regained his health after the challenges of a liver transplant last year. Bruce is a phenomenally prolific writer. He's an award-winning author of more than 70 books of poetry, flash fiction, and nonfiction. He's also well known as the voice behind various CBC radio literature broadcasts, such as The Great Books, A Novel Idea, Great Poetry, Poetry is Life, and vice versa. He's taught at several universities, and he's been writer-in-residence at 2 American universities, Texas and Southern Mississippi. The inaugural Poet Laureate of Barrie, Ontario, 2010 to 2014, he has now just returned to teaching at Georgian College, where he is the professor of writing and communications. He urges everyone to sign their donor cards. And the launch tonight of Church Grammar really marks his return, as he said, to public poetry. And I want to just add that we're on the eve of his birthday, too, which is tomorrow, April 23rd, a birthday he shares with some remarkable people such as Shakespeare or Margaret Avison. So best wishes on your birthday, and welcome to St. Thomas's, Bruce.
Haven't mastered the balance yet, but anyways, good evening. Thank you, David. Thank you very much. In the worst of the, I suppose, medically induced haze that I was in last summer, I called David up. You should never, ever give an iPhone to someone who's high. I mean, right out of orbit high. And I couldn't get the damn thing to work. But the one thing that popped up was David, and I said, "Hi, David." And he said, "Well, Bruce, how are you keeping?" I said, "They cut me open, So they gutted me like a salmon. So anyways, I'm delighted to be here. David reassured me last summer that this night would happen. And I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad you're all here. So thank you so much. I have to change my glasses. My father was down in Virginia with my uncle, and they're there. And they went to a tag sale in somebody's yard. And my uncle lived in the middle of Dismal Swamp, which was both a place and a state of mind. And he, anyways, my father stepped out of the car and he said to the man, "Do you have any books?" Meaning, copies of poetry or novels or things. And the man said, "You mean reading books?" So these are my reading glasses. So, anyways, the first poem I'd like to read tonight is for my mother. There were 3 women who came to my bedside just about every day. And they were a tremendous inspiration. My mother, my sister, Carolyn, and my wife, Carrie. And without them, I don't know where I'd be. They really pulled me through hell. So anyways, this is one for my mother. This is titled Raspberry Canes. Summer is a time of guesswork. The birds and rabbits hunger for every mouthful they swallow. Their animal ghosts arrive before dawn to eat their fill, then vanish. My mother would inspect her garden every morning, taking inventory of what remained before she had light to see by. She would kneel beside a ravaged bough, tell me how she had planned a pie, snap the base of the last rhubarb shoots, and explain the purpose of a sugar bath to quell the sour taste. She'd say, "We must trust in nature, the chronicle of all things hoped for, and evidence of things not seen. Explaining a garden is just a notebook in which one writes the future. If not enough remained for us, she'd detail how to stretch things out, how to make do with only the leavings, not because they were spared, but because the world cannot take it all." The title of this book is Church Grammar. Buildings and architecture have a grammar to them. And I love reading things. I'm particularly interested in Gothic cathedrals, as my 2 friends who were with me over in England know, Andrew and Larry. Years ago, we, in fact, I don't think there's only one Gothic cathedral in England I haven't been in. That's Peterborough. So, one more remains, so we'll have to do that someday, dear. But I stepped in here tonight, and I thought, well, this is well done. Somebody put a lot of work into this, into building this building. It's an arts and crafts style church, but things are well done. And I think we have to, instead of just sort of putting a thumbs down to churches and so forth, it's interesting to see them as works of labor. And someone loved what they were doing, or else they wouldn't have done it. I mean, just looking up the music director's chart here. Everything's beautifully done. So anyways, this is church grammar. And by the way, you can see what is meant by this style and structure of a place. Narthex, nave, transepts and altar, bell tower, loft, gallery and apse. The Spirit dwelt in every holy inch. Easter, birds praying in the eaves. A chorus coughing launched by someone in a rear pew. Other churches were built by Methodists, from plans borrowed from music halls, or A-frames echoing ski chalets with vaults of laminated cedar beams. Some were in the style of classical temples, more like banks than places of spirit. The Spirit co-opts whatever it likes. One doesn't need a church to pray in. Every style is a blessing in disguise, and everywhere one prays, he hears. Church grammar is a gift for ourselves. Let us build a world in our thoughts. Come inside. Lift up our hearts. We lift them up unto the Lord, whether in white, clapboard halls or clear-storied cathedrals, with door jambs carved in angelic faces, some with demons, a few with odd birds, The word speaks through what we leave behind and stutters before the eternal Lord. An oratory is a walk in the woods. Spires are pens that write on the sky. The open sea contains the lives of saints, and mountaintops are pelican lecterns, where the word feeds its young, then flies away. I also love medieval art. I was in New York several years ago with the poet Hallie Villegas, and we decided to go up to the what do they call it? The Metropolitan Gallery in the North End. I'm trying to think of the word. It'll come back to me. Beg pardon? The cloisters. Thank you, dear. Thank you. My daughter is my reference guide here. So, the cloisters. And Hallie said, "Oh, yeah, that's medieval art." I tuned out. I was entirely focused on things. The fact that they can have a little pocket altar in a walnut shell. And I thought, isn't that cool? We throw away walnut shells. But there's a pocket altar. And so you can imagine somebody in the Middle Ages opening it up and sitting there and having their services on it and so forth. So this is how to read medieval art. And again, there's a kind of a semantics to what we see. And semiotics, I guess. A volume purchased in the museum shop explains the complexities of medieval art, where every flower has something to say, like minuscule writing on a grain of rice by a calligrapher obsessed with tiny things. Our father must have driven him mad. Yet the whole world is a painted book, an open vellum drawing in the scriptorium where the monks decide to stop for lunch, gathering to pray over bread and cheese, with lips smudged by ink and gold, after licking their bristles into delicate points to shovel the words from mouth to page. My grandfather licked his pencil lead, and sometimes the nib of a fountain pen. He said an angel danced on the rhodium head, and words in his mouth found their way to the page, the way a seed knows its pollen from another. Medieval painters saw stories in meadows where every flower was an open mouth and every stamen a busy tongue, each bloom a statement of God in nature. So when I look from my living room window at the botanical garden across the street, I feel I must read every morning afresh and write a story as if an angel on my nib dances while it seeks the light. I want to say that David Kent is a great editor. I mean, working with him was a real joy. And, we'd back and forth and so forth. So this was written before I got sick. So anyways, and I thought I hadn't written it. I lay in the hospital, and I'm glad you reassured me that I'd written it. So anyways, this is the bell ringer of Iturbide. In 2015, I went to Mexico and wrote a book down there called Tu Linares, and the book was essentially about the trip, because Mexico is like a life with the volume turned up, and it's brighter and it's louder and so forth. And this was one of the sleepy towns, what they call the Pueblo Mágico, which are these 400-year-old cities that are throughout the heart of Mexico. And Linares is one of them. And Linares hasn't been rebuilt. It hasn't been gussied up yet. So it's kind of like waiting to emerge from its sleep. My daughter came with me the next year, and she was with me when we went to Iturbide. And Iturbide is a little town right on top of the Sierra Madre. It's part of the festival that I was reading at. We went through the Sierra Madre, and this is on her birthday, by the way, in October. And we stopped, and we, because there was this river coming, there's a arroyo coming out of the side of the mountain. And as we creek walked all our way through this valley, literally thousands of butterflies, different colored butterflies, came and lit on our shoulders and so forth. There was a magical moment. Well, we got to the top of the Sierra Madre, and we were in this little town called Iturbide, which no one had touched. It was like the sleepiest place, but it had an aura about it. And on the other side of the Sierra Madre, you get the Joshua trees, and you've got a town called Galiano, which is famous for its golden apples and so forth. So this is the bell ringer of Iturbide. She is bent as if an almond tree, white-haired in an azure smock, straightens as she leaves the church and grasps a bell of rosary thorns, running from a clapper to earth to summon dancers to vesper duty. Teens file out of the civic hall, drawn like daylight in the dusty air. I know the toll from the churchyard elegy, describing streets of an ancient town where every cobble leads to the grave. Houses are painted in broken rainbows, low and hunched, yet stoic as the sky, while someone merely passing through feels like a volume nestled in the hand, comprised of sayings no one can say, in a language silence forgot to speak. History is a dog asleep in a doorway. A cat lies down in the shaded square. And every minute of my life has been a summons to this moment here, clenched in the incisors of Sierra Madre, between the green of their Caribbean smile and the Joshua trees of Galiano. A trail of bright red bougainvillea flows in holy drops of blood down the pale flesh of the sanctified walls to remind me of cactus served in its thorns, while among all the living and the dead, I, a traveler, claiming neither world, nor describing, nor desiring to count myself as a ghost, sit in the square and listen as prayers vanish with day in the bell ringer's hands. Let's see. There we go. I love to take pictures of flowers and sort of play with cameras and things like that. It's sort of a hobby. I haven't done a lot of it because I've been otherwise disposed. But this is titled Taking Pictures of Flowers. Steady the camera on a granite boulder. It is warm because it needs the sun. Rock needs the sun because it is naked. The light reveals how its crystals flow, each igneous angle of fire and earth. A camera enthusiast knows that art is not about seeing what is there, or even finding what the eye can't see, but how to ignore what gets in the way. Everything owns its moment of passion. Looking past the ellipse to stamen and anther, focus in close to the inner core and see the face of the one you love, the presence of loss in time and nature, the mathematics petrified sequence. Lie down beside me at the flower's level. Do not ask it to be more than what it is. Only the shutter is permitted to blink. If you close your eyes, it will cease to exist, but open them and the flower will last forever. Common ground. We meet unexpectedly in a place no one has suitably named. The understanding we share in conversation, gaps filled to overflowing with wonder. This is the place of in-betweens, the no one's land of ourselves, the open city of love and lovers, the neutral nation of uphill climbs. Let us share this as we share ideas. Together, as if life made strangers of us both, as if time turned the page of night too soon because it wanted to read ahead. We map our common ground. If we encounter each other someday and the Holy Spirit stands between us, give it a name, and the name of love. If the rain falls hard, stand under my umbrella until the downpour ends. Finally, I'd like to sort of end with a grace. As I say, when I was in the hospital, the people who came to see me, you meant the world to me. It was like the time in the hospital was like being encased in ice in the center of hell. I could see things going on around me. I was trying to make sense of them. But when people came and talked to me, I was able to see life, and I felt like I had not died, which was something that ran through my head occasionally. So being in there and feeling that I was on the road to recovery, but it would take a while, the visits of a certain number of people really meant the world to me. Carrie, Margaret, Carolyn, David and Hallie, of course, Barney Carberry, Andrew, Fred, they're here tonight, Bruce Hunter, Leanne and Jeff, and Lise and Ted, they were here tonight, and Richard if he's here. So it meant the world. It's like you have no idea, just talking to people. And people just, we would discuss anything under the sun. So anyways, here is my way of saying thank you, as if I'm welcoming you to my home. This is a grace for welcome. You have been many places, and the world that followed you is broad and wise as blue sky. Come in. Rest here as you wish. Take off your overcoat. Feel at home. If you have left the comforts of the familiar, look around. Plant your thoughts and let them grow in shelter. You bring the gift of experience from the places you have been, people you have come to know, the knowledge of open doors. If you wish, tell us over dinner which road the wind travels. So if we should choose to follow the path that led you here, we may learn how the road returns. Thank you very much. Thank you. And God bless you all.
Thank you to all the readers, and of course thank you to all the audience, all you who have come tonight and all who are watching. I'd like to invite those who are present at least to come into the parish hall for a reception. You can get there through this door and then down some steps, around a corner and through another door. And you'll have the opportunity to meet the poets, purchase books, and perhaps have them autographed if you'd like. Looking ahead, I would say that we have another launch coming in November, and you should check out our website for news of that in a few months' time. Thank you, and God bless.